This is the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Check out that new music bed. Nice, huh? Compliments of Chevy Lopez, the PPBL house band. I like it. You like it, Rob? You like it, Clint? My engineers, my trusty engineers? Well, you're going to love tonight's show, and when it's over, you're going to want to run, not walk, to the nearest computer and start writing. I'm not kidding you. The people that you're going to hear tonight are no different than you are. If you listen, you're going to hear yourself. People who wrote and then waited to publish, people who waited to write a story that was literally ready to just burst out of their heads, and they couldn't. Why couldn't they? What finally happened to propel them to get moving? You're going to find out tonight. In fact, you find out every week. On the line, we have Bob Dombrowski. He wrote 38 Years, a Detroit firefighter story. Pretty self-explanatory, right? Bob, you just retired about 4 years ago from fighting fires in a city you say is even scarier than Camden, New Jersey. I find that hard to believe. Crime rates there are consistently among the highest in the country.
I would think so, because usually we come in number one for everything bad, murders, arson, fires, and that. I would think so. I'm pretty sure we surpassed Camden, New Jersey.
Why would you want to be a firefighter in Detroit?
Well, I was born and raised in the city, and when I was younger, the city was great. Growing up in Detroit, we felt sorry for people in other cities like New York, Chicago, Los Angeles. That's how nice our city was. It was nice homes, tree-lined streets, and then when I got old enough to be 21, I applied for the Detroit Fire Department, took the test, and I got on, and worked there for 38 years. Loved my job. Loved going to work. It was great.
What happened to Detroit? It's
kind of like the perfect storm, you know. And the auto companies started going down, or they moved out of the city. We had the big riot in 1967. White flight took off after that. Businesses moved out. Suddenly nobody went downtown anymore. One thing after another. It just crime started skyrocketing. Just one thing after another. Pretty soon there was vacant homes, and people started lighting them up on fire. And right now, I think they're somewhat turning it around. So I'm cautiously optimistic.
I mean, it's just got to be so sad to see that happening.
Yeah, it was, and it was just crazy being a fireman there, working as hard as we did. The fires we have, for example, if I could put this in perspective, how busy we are one of the busiest fire departments in the world as far as fires. We have, I believe, pretty much the same amount of fires as New York City. And New York City is, 8 million people, Detroit 700,000. New York City has around 10,000 firemen. We have 700. And so that's how many more fires we have to put out. And, it was an interesting run for 38 years. But, it's the job, and you do it, and you go to work every day, and in the morning you're happy to go home if you made it in one piece, and then you come back the next day and do it again.
Were there any, memorable moments in particular for you?
Times, if you're in a fire where you actually pull some child out or, help with the rescue of somebody, that's always memorable. Fires where your fellow firefighters get killed are sadly memorable. You'll never forget that. I remember when 911 happened in New York. I was, at that moment, the fire department sent me to anti-terrorism weapons of mass destruction school. If you can imagine that, I'm sitting in there, and we found out that the World Trade Center just got hit, and we took off for New York, and I went to funerals in New York. I ended up doing that. So 343 firemen died there. But it's just tons of memorable stories.
I mean, that's just so ironic that's the kind of school you were at.
Yeah, I've got a certificate in my basement. I show it to people, and they can't believe it. It's September 11th, yeah.
In light of all of this, you never said, what the heck am I doing this for?
Sometimes at nights, because it would be so hard at night, because you'd be up just about we'd work a 24-hour shift. You'd be up all night, going from fire to fire, and you're filthy dirty. You know, in the winter you're so cold, or in the summer you're so hot, and our trucks would be breaking down, and yeah, a lot of those nights you'd say, God, I can't do this anymore. I just can't do this. And you go home and get some sleep and clean up, and you'd come back the next day and do it again.
Man, did you have kids and a wife and all that?
Yeah. I'm married, and I had 3 boys, and raised them, and that was always tough because I'd come. We work a 24-hour shift, so you work a day, you're off a day, work a day, that type of schedule. Work 2 out of 6 days, and I'd come home, and my wife would work. She always worked part-time as a X-ray tech, and she'd go to work, and when the kids were little, I used to have to watch them, and that would be tough. But then when they got older and they'd go off to school, where I could get a few hours sleep before they came home, and and I'd be on their day with them.
What do you want people to take away from this book?
Well, I think a couple of things. One is how hard we work. The Detroit Fire Department. We're a unique fire department. How we hang in there. And we love our city, and we hope our city comes back and becomes great. I can't say the great city, but if it comes back and becomes a functional city, a good city where people can live and have a good life there, that's what we hope, and that's what I put in my book. I put in about my city, about my job, about the how crazy it is, and a lot of the funny stories, a lot of the humor. I started off as a trialman when I first came on, and 38 years later, I was the senior chief, somewhat the duty chief running the city, and so it's a whole yin-yang of the whole fire department there. Plus, being being a public employee, dealing with the city, because right now we went bankrupt. We're the biggest city in America to go bankrupt, and I'm the first guy that ever wrote a book on Detroit, telling our story. And what really worried me is when it came out how they were going to react to it, but they reacted to it very positively. The guys called and liked it and thanked me, and so that's good, because it means a lot. When you're a firefighter, your friends, your firefighters you work with mean everything to you, and you don't want to screw them.
All right, Bob, it doesn't sound like you screwed anybody. I think you did okay. And let me point out, this is one of those books where you could go to the local schools, you could promote yourself as a guy who gave back to his community and talk about what that was like and really spark interest in your book. So thanks a lot, Bob. Our next author, Carrie Allenbacher. She wrote The Early Bird Cafe, a book she describes as a contemporary romance. You take it from there, Carrie.
It's about 2 friends who have been longtime friends since high school, and now that they are 15 so years down the road in their careers, they're very comfortable with their friendship and how things are. And Jim is a published author, and his second novel is picked up where the story starts, and it's for his best friend Eve. It starts a lot of different feelings, because when his first novel was published, things really changed between them. And so now that things had settled down in the interim, now he tells her, my next novel is being published, and it starts all those feelings up again that things are going to change, and he's going to be obsessed about his novel, and she really likes how things are. They have breakfast every morning together, and she doesn't want to lose that if he's going to be famous now. And so that stirs up a lot of emotions for her, things that she was trying not to deal with, and her attraction to him. And so it sets off a chain of events throughout the book to see if their friendship if they are going to let their feelings be known, and if it's going to culminate, or if things might fizzle out.
So how did you come up with this?
Well, a friend critiqued another novel of mine, and she told me that she thought it was non-descriptive, and that challenged me to really prove her just how descriptive I could be. And so I wrote a short story, which was The Early Bird Cafe, and she found Jim to be so alluring that I continued working on it and expanded it over 2 years into a novel.
Isn't that funny? So this was a good friend of yours, and you valued her opinion?
Yes, definitely.
Wow. And, because you know what? Sometimes when friends tell us things we don't like to hear, we get hurt and, run off into a corner somewhere. But you took that information and just made it better. Good for you.
I really enjoy knowing a lot of different people because I can be inspired by the different ways that different people are in life. I find everybody to be so interesting. So, yeah, if people tell me stuff, that's what I really want to hear to help me make things better.
That's great. So now you've got this novel out there. Now, you said you've written before?
Yes.
Are you now on a roll? Are you going to start publishing other stuff?
I hope to, yes. The process was really intense, and it taught me a lot. And so it was really amazing to hold my book and to know that, like, it's not only on sale around me here, but it's on sale in Canada and Sweden and Tokyo. And when I think about that, the Jim and Eve story about their friendship and their love is worth 1,700 yen to someone on the other side of the world. It's empowering. Just to put a year into editing and designing was so worth holding it to have on my shelf forever that I would love to do that again. Were you expecting it to be as difficult as it was? Writing it was not difficult, but once it was accepted, then there was a lot of editing involved. I really wanted to put a lot of concentration and focus into it, thinking that anyone could buy this and read it, and I really, really wanted to give a good quality product. So I spent a lot of time in editing and going through that to make sure that I read it and caught everything that I could, and then you go through designing the cover and things, and it was a lot of work, but really amazing. What do you want people to take away from your book? What's the message? It's not just a love story. A lot of love stories that you read in contemporary romance are two people who stumble upon each other and instantly fall in love, and this is so much different than that because Jim and Eve have known each other forever, and that kind of removes that initial puppy love, lust, attraction from the equation, and it allows readers to really get into their friendship and stuff, and I hope that they can take away the fact that, you know, a friendship can be just as deep and even more so than stumbling into love out of the clear blue. So I hope that they can enjoy the friendship and the banter back and forth between Jim and Eve and enjoy seeing how they find their way through these new feelings. The thing that I'm getting from you is that, you know, she has to let him go for his dream. Yes. And sometimes that's the hardest thing is, you know, you love somebody and you want to be around them. You got to let them go sometimes, and you got to let them have their dream and go for it. And you have to just be there, and you're kind of, you know, on the sideline for a little while, but, you know, in the end, you reap the benefits of allowing them. I mean, everyone should be allowed to experience whatever joy it is that they have a passion for in life. Jim is kind of a combination of everything that I would love in an ultimate dream guy, looks-wise, and I mixed him with some very real weaknesses. And I feel that I've created a mouth-watering character that you just kind of want to slap sometimes because of the things that he does. And I think that most people know a guy like that. So I find that he'll be relatable. And then you have Eve, who is the type of friend that you would love to have. Like you say, she's supportive and she's got a bit more patience than is healthy because for all of her corporate strength, you know, she's shy about things that she should vocalize. But it's that quiet way that draws Jim in because she never pushes or nags and doesn't feel that he has to be who she wants him to be. He can be himself. And so they play off of each other really well. But it's that combination that might end the friendship and the love if they don't really change some things about each other. Carrie, thanks for giving us a real feel for the process. You know, it's a lot of work, but as Carrie points out, well worth the effort, especially when you realize your book's on sale in Tokyo. And not just Tokyo, it's all over the world. We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to get a little history lesson. Don't go anywhere.
Attention all authors. Page Publishing is looking for authors. Have you written a book and want to get it published? Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, Apple, iTunes, and other outlets. They handle all aspects of the publishing process for you. Printing, cover art, publicity, copyright, and editing. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. That's 800-204-6099 for your free author submission kit.
Welcome back to the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. If you're an American history buff, you're going to love this. Our next author is a writer, historian, and a lawyer. William Caudle has written 6 books. This is his first book for Page Publishing, and it really is a fascinating look at a very unlikely relationship between 2 Confederate soldiers. William, take us back to Sugar Creek.
Okay, Sugar Creek is a story of a relationship between 2 men, and one is a lawyer who has come up from Florida in the late 1850s, around 59, 60. And he has come to Lawrenceburg, Tennessee, to establish a partnership with a cousin of his. And then, of course, the war comes along. And he has joined a local regiment, which eventually joins with Nathan Bedford Forrest, who was a cavalry general in the Confederate Army. He's not really a soldier, he's a lawyer, but he has joined, and he is a captain in the Confederate cavalry. He is wounded at the Battle of Jonesboro over in Georgia. This is towards the end of the war. And he is put into a hospital wagon. He is unconscious. He's in a coma. And a soldier from the 4th Florida Infantry, and this is a real outfit that fought in the Army of Tennessee, who happens to be Jeune de couleur de liberté, which means a free man of color. He is a farm owner down in Florida, and it explains in the book why he joined the Confederate Army. He had been a slave of a man named David Levy Yulee, who was the first Florida senator when Florida joined the Union in 1845. Now, a lot of this is historical fact, but this book is a fiction. And Levy won his freedom by saving the senator during one of these wars. And David Levy Yulee was a very wealthy man in Florida, early Florida. He was also a Confederate senator when the Union was broken up. And he gave Levy a farm down near a place called Cedar Key. He called his farm Rosewood, which in later days, truly, there was a racial confrontation where whites were massacring blacks. Anyway, I took this as the place where he was farming when some raiders came in to the area and took his wife off and murdered her. And he also had other relatives that were murdered by Northern sympathizing raiders. Okay? So he joined the Confederacy to seek revenge, sort of, and he eventually repented of that, but he still fought in the Confederate Army because he had enlisted. Anyway, he sees Jim Thorsby, who was the lawyer, in the meat wagon, as they called it, and he rescues him and gets permission to take him to some relatives' house in southern Tennessee. Now, this is behind the Union lines, but he does that, and over a period of time, Jim recuperates and comes out of his coma, and Jim feels that the war is going to be over one way or another. So he goes over to a town called Bainbridge, Alabama, where the Army is gathering, and he joins and becomes an infantry officer. He runs into the commander of the 4th Florida Infantry and gets a command of a mixture of troops. And so the story is their relationship going up to the Battle of Franklin, which is a pivotal battle in the Western campaign.
So basically, we follow these two guys and their relationship.
Yes.
And it's intertwined with all of this history. My God, you are quite the researcher.
Well, thank you. That's part of my background and training because I have a bachelor's degree in history, a master's degree in history, and I'm a lawyer, so I went to law school. And believe me, you research in law school.
Yeah, but what's the takeaway on this relationship?
Jim is a Christian. Levy, on the other hand, is not considered a Christian because he happens to be a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And he teaches Jim about God. And finally at Sugar Creek, before the battle starts, he teaches Jim to pray. And they both go west. And I say, basically, that that's another story.
Man, my head is spinning. That is so much history, William, intertwined with a fascinating story. Thank you. Thanks so much for sharing with us tonight. Finally, a story about a couple of Peace Corps workers who went to Brazil, and their lives were changed forever when they met a very special boy. David Randall wrote, Finding... What?
Neguinho. Like yo, brother.
Like yo.
Neguinho.
Finding Neguinho.
That's it. Uh-huh.
All right, so I don't know. You got me. What is this?
Neguinho is an endearing term for a small child. So it's like a nickname, and that was the name of this 4-year-old boy. He was 4 years old when I met him, and so.
Where did it come from?
The story is set in Brazil. He's a Brazilian boy.
Oh, a little Brazilian boy. Is it somebody you really knew?
Yeah, this is a true story. Yeah, it's a true story. And I knew him because my wife and I joined the Peace Corps and went to Brazil in 1964. And in our work as Peace Corps volunteers, we met this frontier family, and this was their boy. They're one of their younger sons, and so he became kind of a part of our lives, and that's what the story's about, basically.
Did you end up adopting him or not?
Well, he was a visitor to our home basically every day for a couple years while we worked in the forest in a land settlement project. And then I was given a job as a Peace Corps director, and I brought him into the capital city then to live with us for 3 years while started him in school. And so we had those 5 years in Brazil. And then at one point I did bring him for a few months. He came to the United States for, I think it was about 9 months when he was like 12 years old. And then he went back to Brazil, and that was like in 1972. And then we've had a continuing relationship with him, and it continues to this day. And as a matter of fact, I'm headed for Brazil in October, and I'll see him again. He's a 50-year-old man now and is getting ready to have his first grandchild. So basically, he's like a member of our family.
What happened to his family? Where is his family?
Well, that's the story of the book. His family were like Daniel Boone. You know, they were like pioneers, similar to our pioneers back when we were homesteading. They were homesteaders, and they were very poor people. They were illiterate. They were fairly typical of Brazilian pioneers at the time. And so the book is actually a story of, one is a story of the times. My wife and I grew up in the 60s with all the baggage that the United States had at the time, with civil rights and wars and political upheaval, so to speak, in the United States. And the book speaks for that generation, but it also speaks for this Brazilian family who were pioneers that we became entwined with. So to briefly answer your question is what became of his family. Over the period of his life, his mother died of snake bite. His father drowned in the river. He had one sister who ran away with what we would call a gunslinger, I guess. Then he has one brother who's a main character in the book who was more sedentary, and, you could always find him. Every time I went back to Brazil after, a 6 or 8 or 10-year absence, I could always find the little boy's older brother. And through the brother, then, I would track down and find Neguinho. And so I ended up finding him probably 6 or 7 times over the last 50 years. And I continue to do this because he's like a member of our family. And we have an older son. My older son was born in Brazil, and he also has a memory and relationship with these Brazilians. It's like, he's bonded to them. And so that's kind of the story, that's the book.
That's a wonderful story. That's a wonderful story. Why did you go with Page Publishing?
Well, I'm 72 years old. And I've never written anything in my life, but I've thought about this one for, 40 years. I mean, as this story progressed and time passed, I would talk with people. My wife and I have what I would consider, 2 or 3 really good friends from my own age and our own time, and I would talk with them. They've heard all my stories, and they said, you really should write this down. This is interesting. You should share this. And so about a little over a year and a half ago, I started putting it down, and I had it in fairly good form. And then I thought, well, what do I do with this now? And I read very discouraging things, about people wanting to get published. And how do you get a literary agent? Do you send off manuscripts and hope that somebody will pick it up and read it? And I just decided that I know my readership. I know who would be interested in this story. And so I shopped around, and I thought that Page offered me a package I could afford without any illusions or big promises. They would simply print my book for me and help me provide services and a marketing network. And so that's why I went with them rather than try to spend, I have no idea how much time it would have taken, to attract attention. And so I just decided to do it myself. And as I said, I have a very good idea of who my audience will be. And I have networks to let them know that I've written this book, So that's why I went with Page.
So are you getting attention for this book?
The way I started out was to go to my Peace Corps network. The Peace Corps has a directory. The last one I had was published in 2009. I'm going to guess 80 to 90% of every person who's ever served in the Peace Corps. And it gives their email or their home address. And they're also cataloged according to country of service. And so I immediately have about 1,000 names who I know will be interested in my book. So I emailed, I got a little flyer, did a little blurb, and simply bought $200 worth of stamps and sent out letters. And I've been getting some very nice feedback. I looked this morning, there's 2 on Amazon. There are 2 critiques. One's a 5 and one's a 4, and so I take that as a good sign.
I would say that's a really good sign, David, and no doubt it helps that you've built this network of people through the Peace Corps, and you can target each one individually, and those 1,000 people are going to tell another 1,000 people, and honestly, that's a luxury most writers do not have. And we are just about out of time. I want to thank Stephen Matthews. He's the guy who put Page Publishing on the map and has enabled all of our authors that you hear every single week to get their books published. Rob Barat's my engineer who has to put up with me every week. Chevy Lopez, our Page Publishing Book Club house band. Find them on Facebook. And most of all, to you, the authors, you've accomplished what some people think is impossible. It's not. You can do it. And every week we try to show you how. Thanks so much for hanging out with me tonight. Come back next week for another edition of the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.